Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Tiana here once again, and I am back for the likes of the Maxi Toys videos, as you probably expect at this point in time. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of Let's Play of Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe for the Nintendo Switch, basically based off from Kirby's Return to Dreamland back on the Nintendo Wii. So last time, we essentially did manage to complete everything for the sake of the Forms of World 2 for the Forms of Rays and Ruins on Extra Mode. Despite I did occasionally die at one point, mainly due to the Forms of I did not finish off the Forms of Kaboo during the Forms of the Flare Beam super ability and stuff like that, which I was not expecting to see that coming, but regardless of everything else though, we did somehow manage able to breezily win through this, despite the fact that, like I said before, is about the fact that in the Extra Mode's case, that it will get a lot more lengthy. So either way, today for this video is about the fact that we'll be able to actually continue on with the Forms of the Extra Mode, and this time we're going to be hit on to the Forms of Onion Ocean to make things a little bit more of a tropical setting, especially noticeable because there's a good thing about that particular point where today, thank goodness, the weather condition is actually not too shabby this time around, because as a result, that it was currently sunny at the moment, so either way though, since about the fact that we're still in summer season after all, that this particular level might actually be a perfect fit during the Forms of the summer season, although unlike the Forms of the next world coming up in during the Forms of tomorrow's case, and obviously about that specific point about the fact that we might able to actually realize that, well, I suppose we're also able to explain more details about that at some point in tomorrow's case, although I do know for certain for one thing, and that's what appears to be about the fact that eventually that, well, Ray the Flying Squirrel might actually feel to be a little bit more better at some point in during the Forms of tomorrow, and eventually though that he'll be ready for able to actually continue able to do some more uploading schedules during the Forms of in Super Mario RPG, and you probably name the rest of it though. So either way, a few things I want to explain for this point today, and that will have to be by the Forms of today's date, of course, the 16th of August today, in some cases in 2023 today. Naturally speaking though, we've only just got about 2 more weeks to go until Mario Plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope DLC 3, or potentially speaking the final DLC, which is of course Rayman in the Phantom Show, is going to be almost approaching. So even then though, once we able to actually finish off with this game completely, that is a perfect opportunity for me to able to actually go back onto the Forms of Mario Plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope after quite a few weeks or so, mainly because about the fact that despite the fact that I'm still busy playing through the Tower of Doom, and potentially speaking though about the fact that I seem to able to actually realize that I've almost finishing up everything for Mario Plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope from now on, because relatively speaking though, I'm not exactly sure if I was going to do a Let's Play of the game, mainly because about the fact that I'm not very great at the Fire Emblem style grid based. Well, thankfully though that Sparks of Hope is no longer grid based, unlike the Forms of how it does in the first game, because obviously in Kingdom Battle you have to utilize the grid system when it comes to maneuver the Forms of not only certain characters, but also just try to strategize, you know, certain things and what have you. So, but either way though, but yeah, you probably get the idea about that, and I can't even believe it's actually getting very close to the point where, well, you probably already know about the fact that we're now on to the halfway point in terms of August already, during the Forms of this year in particular. So because of that though, yeah, it seems about the fact that we've almost nearly at the end of summer season before we move on to the September month, and as a result, that September month, despite the fact that I was hyped for only one thing only, that's what appears to be of course Pikmin 1 and Pikmin 2 physical version on a Switch version, so yeah, you probably get the idea about that. But then it wasn't until in October and November things gets a little bit more, well, hyped than ever before, especially noticeable at that specific point where, to me though, is about the fact that it does kind of reminds me of a similar vibe as in 2013 a bit, although except the fact that despite in the UK version of, you know, Mario Party Island Tour doesn't get released until 2014, but I'm sure about the fact that we'll let some toys else were able to actually mention more about it during the Forms of the later Let's Plays to come, to be more specifically when it gets to the point where it gets like towards the very end of 2023, presumably. So anyway, Some things I would also like to point things out as well. That's what appears to be about the fact that at this point in time, that I was originally able to mention something related to football or soccer, if you will, but I think I should probably able to let Ray the Flying Squirrel were able to actually mention more about it during the course of the forms of the entire weekend department, because, well, honestly guys, I haven't exactly followed that much of football through quite a few hours or so, mainly because about the fact that I was being busy playing through other stuff recently, specifically with Super Mario RPG, because the remake is definitely coming, and on top of all that stuff though, that's all I can really say about this, I guess. So either way though, then you should probably already know about the fact that we obviously now going to be wearing Nightmare Wizard mask, which is actually based off from Kirby's Adventure's final boss, or if you also want to count Kirby Nightmare in Dreamland final boss as well, that it's basically the same thing, except with the forms of different graphics and all that stuff between Kirby's Adventure and Kirby Nightmare in Dreamland, because, you know, Nightmare in Dreamland is considerably a remake of Kirby's Adventure, basically. So, and so far, when it comes to the forms of Kirby remakes and stuff like that, it seems to be really, really good, all things considered. Especially noticeable because, after all, that we've already come across into 3 remakes of Kirby games, essentially. Well, despite the fact that I was expecting to also include Kirby's Extra Epic Yarn, but to be honest with you, it's basically just a port, especially noticeable concerning about that particular point where I don't know if it's possible about the fact that I just can't even believe that Kirby's Extra Epic Yarn does not utilize 3D feature, which is kind of a bummer though, especially concerning about that specific point where Kirby's Extra Epic Yarn did came out in a late 3DS life cycle until when they start to realize they're now working on the majority of the Nintendo Switch stuff, as you probably expect at that one point, so... But I digress. Oh yeah, there's also another thing I should probably explain about this as well, is that, potentially speaking, for what I've heard for some rumors out there, despite I don't usually trust them as much, but maybe at some point they'll eventually try to able to announce a brand new model for PlayStation 5. I'm thinking it might be possible, but it might be a hard speculation for the sake of time. If it does become true though, I'm seriously going to be able to try desperately want to get the PlayStation 5. Even especially noticeable, if the slim model exists, then I should definitely able to actually buy it, despite the fact that, well, relatively speaking though, I do need able to arrange some spacing for my Nintendo consoles or my video game cabinets or something like that, because at this point in time I'm almost running out of room for my systems right now. But if it does came out to be true anyway, then I can definitely say this right now, we can probably start able to predict the forms of my Christmas list for this year in particular, if it does become true. That's the only thing, because obviously with all that grain of salt and all that stuff. So either way, now let's go ahead and take care of the forms of Sphere Duma EX again, but thankfully with the Tornado, it should make things a little bit more easier, especially noticeable because again, if you hold down the button and you can able to charge up your Tornado attack, then you should able to actually devastate the actual attack instantly, which, as a result, spoiler alert, for those of you probably wondering what's ever going to be happening, for the sake of the forms of the True Arena coming up, basically though is about the fact that I'm essentially going to be using Tornado the whole way through. That's just because about the fact that Tornado seriously rocks in this game. Which, again, it's kind of unfortunate that the Tornado copy ability never makes its return on Triple Deluxe, including Planet Robobot. I'm guessing mainly because about the fact that the Tornado ability might be considered broken at times. But, regardless of everything else though, is about the fact that I can seriously highly doubt about the fact that I seriously love Tornado so much. But I digress. So, anywho though, and as far as I'm aware, as far as you might already expect, is that, yeah, it's kind of unfortunate for me that I don't seem able to get myself Green Bodo in Mario Kart Tour, which is kind of unfortunate on my part, especially noticeable because I was expecting to able to actually get Green Bodo in Mario Kart Tour, but of course that's not gonna happen, especially noticeable because I still really despise the ranking cup system, which as a result brings me a lot of unfortunate events, and on top of that, it doesn't give me any multiple chances when it comes to able to getting certain characters like these. Although thankfully though, we can still able to actually consider getting Green Bodo thanks to the forms of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, potentially. So either way though, because obviously I just don't really care for Tour anymore, especially noticeable because, well, at this point in time, that maybe it's a possibility that we might able to actually get ourselves the, potentially the final city track during the forms of Mario Kart Tour, which I know I keep on heard about it, but as a result, we're most able to have to find out. Maybe, well, usually I think it's probably best to let Ray the Flying Squirrel were able to mention more details about that once he's going back onto the forms of Super Mario RPG, once he's fully recovered during the forms of the Soul Throat situation. And as far as I'm aware, that he's actually getting very, very close. Well, exponentially speaking though, he still needs to able to tackle through some extras here and there, although consecutively though, and that's what appears to be about the fact that I'm pretty certain that the casino part that he did somehow activate during the course of the forms of Crate Guy's Casino or something like that. I think that particular area is pretty much optional as far as I'm aware. Well, mind you about the fact that I'm sure that he'll show off that eventually once he's going to be able to tackle through other things first. So, but you know, time flies, you know, with all that particular, you know, Super Mario RPG continuation parts here and there. And exponentially speaking, though, is about the fact that despite the fact that we haven't exactly got that much views of Super Mario RPG, mind you about the fact that because of our fact that a lot of people seem to really enjoy our Let's Play of Kirby's Eternal Dreamlands Deluxe so far. Well, that's just because about the fact that I get the strong sense of feeling it might have the exactly the same vibe as in the forms of New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe back in 2019, despite the fact that we got able to play through not only New Super Mario Bros. U, but also New Super Luigi U at the same time. Because unlike the forms of how it does it on the Wii U version, that obviously you have to do a separate playlists when it comes to both New Super Mario Bros. U and New Super Luigi U on the Wii U. Although I was expecting about that specific point that, even though it's a bit tricky to explain because I know for a fact it's been quite a few hours since I actually have last mentioned something like, you know, Let's Plays in the past, and also just anything else in that particular, so. But, anywho though, oh yeah, and as far as I'm aware, for that particular point as well, is that tomorrow will be marks the 11th anniversary of the release of the UK's release of New Super Mario Bros. 2 for the Nintendo 3DS, and as a result, I think I should probably able to not mention about this right now, but that's just because about the fact that, relatively speaking though, there are some, quite a few information I could possibly explain about this for this point today, like, as a result, about the fact, no matter what though, as far as I'm aware, that is actually going to be able to make things a bit ridiculous for Disney Plus price tag at this point. Like, for instance, on the American version, most likely, that Disney decides to able to raise price on ad-free Disney Plus to $13.99 per month, starting until the 12th of October. So that's going to be on Thursday. So because of that, though, I just have no words able to actually notice for that specific price change. Although I'm not exactly sure what's converted into the UK's currency, like pounds, but let me know in the comments down below, because obviously about the fact I haven't exactly researched up on the conversions to dollars to pounds and even yen or euros, essentially. So because of that though, because I haven't exactly researched upon currency for money for quite some time at this point, especially noticeable because, well, for what I've noticed is about the fact that on the Amazon UK website right now, when it comes to the forms of the upcoming games, like for instance WarioWare Move It and Super Mario RPG Remake, I think I'm also able to guarantee to able to actually get the benefit for the doubt when it comes to able to pre-ordering those two things combined with the actual price cut. Well, I usually say things like that because obviously about that specific point that makes things a pretty big deal or a pretty good deal for that matter. but I suppose I'm also able to have to wait for that, and during at some point once we get to the beginning portion of October, so that way I can get my benefit for the doubt when it comes to able to pre-ordering not only WarioWare Move It, but also with Super Mario RPG Remake. So that may be my ideal way for able to actually just pre-order certain stuff. I'm not going to pre-order it straight away though, because obviously we're still on the forms of the halfway point in August potentially, so... And also, one thing I surprisingly forgot to mention about is that about the fact that it's been about a year ago, roughly speaking, since Junior Forms have been 2022, that we actually got ourselves the Splatoon 3 Direct. That usually happens during the Forms have been the 10th of August last year. Like, I can't even believe it's been about a year ago since when that happened. So, but either way though, despite the fact that I haven't exactly touched upon Splatoon 3 for quite some time now, but that's just because about the fact that, again, been busy playing through Super Mario RPG on the Super Nintendo Classic Mini recently, because obviously I'm just about to be fully excited for the remake coming up, and I'm sure most people are pretty excited about that as well. Assuming, of course, if you guys do able to own the Nintendo Switch, it doesn't really matter if it's either the original 2017 model, or the version 2 improvement battery version, or the OLED model. So because of that though, yeah, that's what I can really think about it. Oh, and same applies with the Nintendo Switch Lite as well. The only thing I'm unsure of is that maybe they're trying to able to add it in the Amiibo functionality or something like that, mainly around the same time as when maybe there's a potential about the fact that they'll bring in Amiibo figures for not only for Mello, but also with Gino as well. It's hard to tell at this point, because I know for a fact that we still only got about roughly 3 months for now until the remake of Super Mario RPG is about to be releasing during that specific period. So, anywho though, so there's another explanation I should probably... Oh, dang it! Oh, jeez. Oh, that's not good. But at least, potentially speaking though, luckily we're at the very end of the stage, so... Ay. Sometimes though, extra mode can be very difficult if you come across into any nerve-wracking experiences like these ones, so... Alright, not too shabby right there, especially concerning about that specific point that, you know, like I mentioned this before, is about the fact that extra mode might also feel a bit lengthy. Like I said before, it's all depending on the forms of death situations here and there, for certain rooms to encounter, so... Alright, so now we can able to move on to stage 3, and of course we're able to unlock something, which is of course Copyability Room 2, so that should be all pretty swell. So either way though, that might be saying something. So anyway though, there's also another thing I should probably explain about this as well, is that according to the forms of IGN, that they did say about the fact that Starfield is actually the biggest game for Xbox since Halo 5, which... I have no comments for this point, especially noticeable. I've never actually played any of these, but from what I've heard, that Starfield is definitely a lot more gigantic than the forms of how it does it for Halo 5, which I have no idea I somehow bring this up. But either way though, that's just one of those random topics I could possibly explain about any of these things. But regardless of anything else though, I'm not exactly sure if ND World Direct is going to take place, but I'm sure enough though it might eventually happen during the forms of, well, later on in this month, because I know for a fact that for the general Nintendo Direct will always take place in September, which should be next month. So, although unfortunately though about that, imagine this, right, if the final general Nintendo Direct is going to take place in sometime on the 11th of September, or potentially speaking though with the forms of the 13th of September, much like the forms of how it does it on any other years for this point. Well, excluding buddy forms of 2019, because 2019 takes place much earlier, and same applies with the forms of 2021, because it takes place later. So, but either way though, and despite the fact that during the forms have been last year's September Direct, for the UK version most likely, they have to wait until they manage to publish the actual Direct on demand rather than just doing live stream because of, you know, Queen Elizabeth II's death. So yeah, that's, you know, understandable, because obviously we need to be respectful for her. So, but either way though, oh jeez, I just realized it's almost been about 1 year ago since when that happened. Like, quite shocking news as well, which I suppose we're able to actually save that particular topic for later. So, but either way though, assuming of course about the fact that if we decided able to come back into Sonic Frontiers or Super Monkey Ball Banana Mania, which I know for a fact that Silver is still not ready to able to go back onto Super Monkey Ball Banana Mania, potentially speaking, because of the forms of he's now onto let's just say the last difficulty. Well, despite the fact that he's still not going to be tackling through Marathon mode, because obviously Marathon mode plays pretty much exactly like the forms of how it does it on any other, like, you know what I'm saying with all that ultimate mode for the sake of Super Monkey Ball Deluxe case, so. Anywho though, so there's another topic I would like to explain about this as well, and that's what appears to be about the fact that it's been 15 years ago since when there's a film, I think is what it says anyway, is the film called Star Wars The Clone Wars, that potentially speaking, that particular film did came out in 2008, and recently it turned into 15 years old since 2008. And while looking back on it though, I'm not a big fan of it. That's all I can really talk about it, because obviously I've never actually seen a series either, but that's just because I'm more into the forms of the classic trilogy of all things, like to be more specifically Episode 4, Episode 5, and of course Episode 6, The Return of the Jedi. And as a result for that particular matter though, with The Return of the Jedi, obviously it just became, you know, was it 40 years old? Yeah, I'm sure it's 40 years old for that time. Especially noticeable because concerning about that specific point that we've already able to celebrate the Star Wars Day since May the 4th. So, but either way though, that's for, I don't know what it is usually, I'm just trying to think about it. Again, I apologize for my commentary is a bit slightly iffy at this point, but that's just because, well, aside from the forms of this, one last thing I want to mention about, there's not much news I can probably discuss upon at this point. Although I know for a fact that for one thing about the fact that maybe potentially they'll try to able to upload an early image screenshot for the sake of the forms of Mario Kart Tour's upcoming tour at some point during the forms of later on until tomorrow, which I suppose I should probably able to mention more brief details onto that specific topic. Well, not the majority of everything though, that's the only thing, because obviously about that specific point that we probably might as well have to wait, and during at some point in the later days to come, especially noticeable because even though it's kind of unfortunate too that I don't think Ray the Flying Squirrel were able to mention about this either, but that's just because about the fact that he's obviously going to be busy just to you know, read certain descriptions for enemies and all that stuff, including bosses, bios and stuff like that. And as a result for that particular matter though, because he was incredibly busy just able to actually just to find out specific facts for not only for enemy encounters, but also with the forms of boss strategies as well. So, but either way though, it's understandable because obviously that, you know, I can't believe we're actually going to be tackling through an RPG game at long last, even though it was originally going to be Kingdom Hearts Final Mix, but because of how the fact that with all this very, very strict uploading schedules back in during the forms of not only for the longest gap, when it comes to 2018, but also say applies with 2019 as well. That potentially speaking though about the fact that unfortunately though that particular Let's Play has been cancelled back in during the forms of since by the end of 2019 and probably the beginning portion of 2020 either. But that's just because about the fact that we've been busy doing a lot of redo Let's Plays in the past, like for instance with Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Winter Games, Mario and Sonic at the London 2012 Olympic Games, although I could mention I was originally trying to able to go for Rio 2016 redo Let's Play here and there as well, but I suppose maybe it can wait, and during at some point if God knows if Mario and Sonic at the Paris 2024 Olympic Games will be in existence on the Nintendo Switch, but if it does, we will definitely go ahead and try to do a redo Let's Play of Mario and Sonic at the Rio 2016 Olympic Games, specifically the Wii U version, mainly because I feel like the quality is decent, but I will admit though right away, the commentary is a bit meh. And on top of that, the screen size is not the best, especially noticeable because you do definitely see the actual, like, black outlines or black bars of the actual screen or something like that. I'm guessing because of that, the specific, one of those settings is messed up on the Wii U system, as far as I'm usually concerned with that stuff though. But regardless of everything else though, we'll have to wait and find out. So, but either way though, and also about that specific point where the fact that, we also did do a redo Let's Play of Super Mario Sunshine, and I think also applies with Mario Party and Mario Party 2, both on the N64 anyway. And usually relatively that we did somehow play the original cartridge version of those two games respectively, just in case about that specific point that, you know what I'm saying about the fact that with the Wii Virtual Console version of Mario Party 2, does seem to able to have some bit of weird sound issues lately, which is especially noticeable because I sort of rarely gone back onto the Wii Virtual Console version of Mario Party 2 every now and then, because I'm now, for whatever reason, pretty much used to with the cartridge version, although sure, the actual quality is not exactly the best though, but regardless of everything else though, it's just about the fact that I just do think that the nostalgia factor just really starts to kick in or something like that, so. But that's just the way I feel about it anyway, especially noticeable because I just loved able to actually get the physical copies of certain other franchises, as far as I'm aware, that I'm sort of really into. Like, you know, with The Legend of Zelda, Mario, Sonic the Hedgehog, Kirby, Metroid, and pretty much everything else for that matter. The only one exception in particular though, and that's what appears to be, or few exceptions though actually, which there are both Mega Man and Castlevania games. Well, the reason why I'm saying this is because, well, obviously I'm now into the forms of the actual compilation games when it comes to not only for Mega Man, but also with the Castlevania series as well. But that's just because some of them are cheap, but most of them are stupidly expensive. Like, for instance, with the forms of, you know, the physical version of Castlevania Symphony of the Night, as well as the forms of the original cartridge version of Castlevania A New Generation, aka Bloodlines, and on top of that with the forms of Mega Man 5 for the NES cartridge version, and especially noticeable with Mega Man 7, also the original cartridge version as well. And I do know for certain for one thing, I apologize for that little tongue twist in the end folks, which I will admit that I apologize for that. But basically, that Mega Man 6 has never got its European cartridge version released because it only came out on Japan and North America for some reason, which I almost assume that will be, I don't know, it's a bit tricky to explain, so but either way. I suppose the last thing I want to mention though, before we get on to the forms of other topics I would like to mention about, that's what appears to be out of nowhere, is that, well, once again, Activision just somehow managed able to announce yet another Call of Duty game, except this time, it's going to be releasing on not only Windows PC, but also on PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X/S. Jeez, they never seemed able to give up any forms of not only PS4, alongside with Xbox One systems here and there. That will have to be by the forms of Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3, in this case a rebooted version of the game, which, man, they keep on releasing those games for every single year. Like, what is this, like FIFA or something like that all over again? Or, potentially speaking, it's kind of like the similar situation back in the 2000s era. They managed able to release every Mario Party game with every year, whilst every now and then when it comes to, like, console Mario Party games, they somehow managed able to release them with a 3-year gap, like, you know, with Mario Party 9, 10, Super, and Superstars, and after all, we're actually getting quite close towards in 2024, so maybe it's a possibility that we might able to actually get ourselves the true final Mario Party game to be released on the Nintendo Switch at some point, before they moved on to the next generation of consoles, imagine so. But it's so difficult to tell at this point, because I know for a fact that we're still in 2023 right now, so relatively speaking though, everything else will be pretty much simply accounted for. So, but either way though, yeah, it's pretty insane to able to actually get themselves, you know, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 rebooted version of their specific game, and it's about to be releasing at some point in this year in particular as well. I think my guess is it will probably, as usually, is going to be releasing on, as usual, in November, just like the forms of how it does it on any other games in the past, especially noticeable concerning about that specific holiday season, which I think that might actually release roughly around the same month, as in not only WarioWare Move It, but also with Super Mario RPG Remake. So, yeah, it's definitely a little bit more, well, granted than ever before. Well, as far as I'm aware, because the only game I was really into in last year's November, and that was, of course, Sonic Frontiers. But aside from all that stuff, though, I honestly didn't seem able to be bothered, able to actually buy myself Pokemon Scarlet or Violet, but that's just because of technical issues with all that frame rate, worse visuals, and it plays a little bit rough around the edges. Especially noticeable, I remember that back in the day when that game first came out, that a lot of people complained about the forms of some weird bug fixes or some weird bugs they've somehow encountered, and especially noticeable with this very obscure frame rate, which as a result, it's even worse in during the forms of NPC characters managed to able to walk around in the entire town, despite the game did sell pretty dang well for some reason. But I know for a fact that a lot of people seem able to complain about certain issues lately with all that, you know what I'm saying, with the actual bugs they're able to come across into, and also the visuals is not that very great either. I'm biased, I guess, especially noticeable because I always attempt able to buy video games that has some amazing visuals, like for instance with The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, Metroid Prime Remastered, and especially noticeable with the forms of any other games for that matter, like Super Mario Odyssey, and especially noticeable with The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, that's obvious. And on top of that with the forms of Splatoon 2, Splatoon 3, and also with the forms of other titles, I could possibly name a few. But aside from all that stuff, though, is about the fact that this is a prime example of how that I'm essentially just giving up buying Pokemon games nowadays, especially noticeable because I just don't know what to think about it. Although I was expecting to able to try to get myself Detective Pikachu Returns once that comes out, but honestly I'm still pretty much going to have to save up for, you know, some exciting titles like, you know, with WarioWare Move It and Super Mario RPG Remake, which I'm honestly excited for Super Mario RPG Remake a lot more, just because, you know, we can finally play the game on a go, and on top of that, it will fix a lot of issues that we have since on the original Super Nintendo version. So that'll be pretty amazing though, and potentially if my speculation for that is, maybe they'll try to add it in the amiibo functionality, much like the forms of how it does it in the, well, most Mario games for the most part. Well, I say for the most part because relatively speaking though is about the fact that the last time they actually utilized amiibo functionality for a Mario game on the Nintendo Switch for that matter, I think the last time they utilized the amiibo functionality was definitely Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury, if I recall correctly, because mind you, in Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope, for some reason, never actually included the amiibo functionality, which is kind of odd if you say so for yourself. And on top of all that stuff though, with Mario Strikers Battle League Football also don't utilize the amiibo functionality, and same applies with Mario Party Superstars here and there, because, you know, for some reason that was the only NDQ Mario Party title since both Mario Party 9 and Island Tour ditches the actual amiibo functionality. I think my guess is about the fact that the amiibos nowadays are just for bragging rights, especially noticeable they just give you like some in-game currency for the sake of the forms of Super Mario Party, and also say applies with the forms of some very weird collectibles you can able to obtain, and on top of all that stuff though, just anything else in general. While I know for a fact that I can still able to collect certain amiibo figures every now and then, like for instance I still got myself the Samus amiibo figure based off from Metroid Dread, because of the forms of this particular energy tank I desperately needed in case if I want to survive throughout the majority of Metroid Dread. And that can be also applies with the forms of, well, the Kirby amiibo based off from, you know, around the time when Planet Robobot came out. Now as a result of that specific matter though, about the fact that, well, there was actually that very useful copy ability I could potentially try to able to utilize with for the sake of the forms of not only the arena, but also the true arena as well. That's what appears to be by the forms of the UFO, and that will be coming very handy when it comes to likely dish out as many of those bosses as much as I can, assuming of course I do need able to get some bit of skillful involved when it comes to able to try to dodge a lot of things here and there, and especially noticeable just trying to able to charge up the actual beam of the UFO at the right time. So, but either way though, despite the fact that it's been a couple of days since I actually have last played Kirby Planet Robobot on my 3DS, so, but either way though, hopefully it might be possible for me to able to actually go back into the forms of other Kirby games in the future, but when it comes to doing Let's Plays on specifically Triple Deluxe and Planet Robobot, it's kind of a bit of a struggle at the moment, especially noticeable because those two games utilizes the actual 3DS gyroscope controls, and on top of all that stuff though, we still haven't exactly got ourselves the 3DS capture device, so but either way though, but I'm sure enough though about the fact that it is still possible for me to able to actually tackle for some other spin-off games here and there, like for instance about the fact I'm not exactly sure if I was going to tackle through Kirby Air Ride just yet. Well, I know for certain for one thing about the fact that obviously Kirby Air Ride did eventually became 20 years old recently for not only Japan but also North America as well, which, kind of think about it though, that also happens in new forms of in Mario Golf Toadstool Tour, and maybe potentially we're able to celebrate the 20th anniversary of not only Mario Kart Double Dash, but also with the forms of Mario Party 5 here and there as well. And potentially speaking, once we move on to 2024, we're able to celebrate the 20th anniversary of the release of Mario Power Tennis for the GameCube, and same applies with Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door, and even Pikmin 2 on the GameCube version, and also Mario Party 6 for not only a Japanese release, but also with the Americans release as well. But it wasn't until in 2025 we were able to actually celebrate the 20th anniversary of not only Super Mario Strikers or Mario Smash Football for those of you who lived in the European countries. That could be also applies for Mario Superstar Baseball, and even in North America and a Japanese release of Mario Party 7. So because of that though, gee, around that time, about that specific point where every now and then certain GameCube games are going to get much more expensive to buy. Although luckily we can still able to actually keep it forever, because obviously I'm not going to able to actually sell most of my Mario stuff, because no way in heck, because I am seriously refused to able to actually just to like get rid of them, because you know, Mario is obviously the most iconic video game character of all time, as you probably already know this at this point, so... Anyway, so we made our way to the boss fight in Journey Forms of Onion Ocean, so as a result we might able to actually stumble across into the harder version of this specific fight right here. So but either way though, and this time about the fact that he's probably gonna get things a little bit more tougher, so but either way though, yeah, we got able to memorize the forms of certain attacks in the forms of the EX version, which I know for the fact that the last time we actually encounter certain EX battles, which appears to be in the forms of in the true arena, on the Wii version to be more specifically, because I know for a fact that, like I said before, that it's, you know, it's about time we can finally able to actually do the extra mode during the forms of in a Switch version, just because of all that, you know, certain masks I need to obtain throughout, so... And of course, since I keep on getting hit a lot, so thankfully we're still able to actually utilize energy drinks, so just in case I can able to actually restore my health in the process, so but either way though, yeah, in terms of everything else I could possibly say about this, that's as far as I can talk about, although I would like to explain something else, but then again though, we have to wait and find out if it's possible that if ND World's presentation might happen, or perhaps even maybe they'll save it for later, or generally speaking, just, well, it's so difficult to tell. So either way, let's go and use our energy drink right there, just in case we can able to restore our health. So, oh jeez, I did not notice he's going back and forth right there. But hopefully we'll try to finish him off as much as we can able to actually just, well, do not get hit most of our time, and just try to float up, and now he's going to be able to shoot water in any direction right there. So, relatively speaking though, as long as you would know what you're doing, this particular battle is not too shabby for the most part, despite the fact that we have to deal with him with a lesser amount of health, compared to the forms of how he does it on the normal story mode run through, so... But then again though, sometimes dealing with boss fights might take a bit of forever to able to actually get through. Although, once we get to the true arena, hopefully it should make things a little bit more faster and quicker, thanks to the forms of what else? The OP'd Tornado copy ability, which originally I was expecting to try to able to utilize the Sand copy ability. Like, some people seem to say that Sand Kirby is the most overpowered copy ability when it comes to dealing with certain bosses. But every time when I tested that out on my own time, I couldn't seem to able to get it working properly. So because of that though, maybe because I'm sort of still getting used to with the actual Tornado ability the most. So, but that's just the way how I feel about it, especially noticeable because you probably already noticed by this, at least in ever since in Journey forms have been, you know, the Wii version of the specific Kirby's Return to Dreamland game itself. So, but either way though. So there goes our third part, and that pretty much takes care of the forms of the rest of World 3. So either way though, we've only just got about 5 worlds left, technically speaking, for those of you who already experienced the normal story mode already. So yeah, it's no surprise about the fact that we'll still have to go for the exactly same worlds as before, but with ultimate difficulty here and there. So there we go. And exponentially, we also was able to actually unlock the next mask here and there as well. Once we're able to actually go back onto Merry Megaland for a brief second. And on top of that, we're also going to change into a different mask as well. And this time around though, I'm actually going to be dressed up as the Dark Matter based off from Kirby's Dream Land 2. Because as a result, like I said before, we'll wear these specific masks in a chronological order time-wise, or to be more specifically when it comes to game releases during that period. Especially noticeable because I was expecting to try to able to wear marks, but marks will be for later, for specifically in World 5, which appears to be Nutty Noon. So either way though, and also I apologize for that commentary is a bit slightly awkward as well, because once again, my laptop decides to lag on me, which I know for a fact that it's pretty annoying, but hopefully I'll try to fix that at some point until tomorrow, because obviously about that specific point that we can able to actually potentially try to mention about, you know, something related to Mario Kart Tour, if that particular, you know, the earliest screenshot of this upcoming tour will be like. Although especially noticeable, it's kind of unfortunate that I can't feel like trying to able to mention about some contents they'll bring in. Maybe potentially I might as well mention more about it at some point on next Monday, but I suppose time will tell, especially noticeable because, well, you know what I'm saying. So with that being said though, I think we should probably end things off this point right here. So join me next time for more of Let's Play of Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe while we're playing through the extra mode portion of the game. That's where we're going to be hit on to World 4, which appears to be White Wolfers, I think is what it says anyway. So I'll see you guys until tomorrow. Later fellas.